So now I'm going to introduce to you WPTV First Alert Meteorologist, James Weiland.
All right, thank you guys. Sometimes I don't need this because I'm kind of loud, but good to see everybody here. Wow, what a turnout with this. This is crazy. This is so nice to see too, because really, you know, we go through this every single year. We have a lot of new people coming here, and welcome to all the new people here who don't really know what we go through every year. You're in for an eye-opening experience, aren't you? But we're here to tell you kind of what to expect and to keep you safe and maybe keep that tension down a little bit. So once you go through some of this, you're going to be all right. You're going to know what to do, and we'll all be okay. So we're going to go over here. This is a little presentation that I came up with. It usually takes like an hour, so I'm going to compress it into 25 minutes here. But we'll go over some of the science behind what the hurricane forecasting is. I'll let you know what to expect this year for this year and why we kind of expect that. I'll keep the science and math a little bit low. We don't want to use our brains too much today, but we'll keep it low. But just to explain that we're not just, the scientists aren't just throwing a dart at the board. These are reasons, these are things we look at, kind of indications happening in the atmosphere that we see, and that this is the reason why we're coming up with some of these forecasts. Some of the top scientists are, and one of them just came out, Dr. Philip Klotzbach of Colorado State. That's the original one, the OG. He's been doing it forever and ever and ever. He took over for Dr. Bill Gray. He was his apprentice. Dr. Phil, really great guy too. I've met and talked with him several times, and he just updated his forecast. I'm pretty staying on par that it's going to be a really busy season, but I'm going to show you the why behind that too. So my name, James Weiland here. I've been here for a little while. Here's a little bit of history behind me. I graduated from Florida State University. Any Noles out there? Go Noles. Nothing, all Gators, aren't you? I run into that a lot, but yeah, I've been in the business 24 years. I started out in Clarksburg, West Virginia was my first station. And when you're a TV meteorologist, you have to start in small little markets and kind of work your way up. But I grew up down here in South Florida, so my goal was to come back to South Florida. And my family's here, my mom, sister, brother, are all down here in South Florida, so it was great to get back here 15 years ago. I can't even believe that it's been 15 years since I started at WPTV, and really I started part-time. My buddy called me and said, hey, I'm just a fill-in guy, but I'm leaving. You should call Steve Weigel and see if he needs somebody. So I did, and you know, here we are 15 years later. I do the morning show, but now I just got moved over to the night show. So I'm going to be on the 6:30, 7, 10, and 11 p.m. So if you watch me in the morning on Fox 29 and WPTV, you're going to watch me, have to switch at night to watch me in the PM for just about the same amount of hours, but at night instead of in the morning. And really what got me interested in weather is surfing. I grew up down here, and my buddy took me surfing once in Boca, and just like that, it's just something that stays with you. You know, it's something, I love it. This is on Palm Beach on the north end, and I mean, I love it. And what makes waves, well, the weather makes waves, and that's what I found out, and I started saying, you know what, I was in high school, and I'm like, maybe I can make a career studying the weather so I know when there's waves again enough. All right, so that's what I did there. Here's our team. We've grown to 6 meteorologists. When I first started, I was the extra guy, and really I was only half because I was part-time. So we only had 3.5 people, and now we have 6 people. It has grown tremendously here over the years because WPTV and WFLX knows the commitment we need to make to the people to really keep you guys safe out there. And we've always gotten the best equipment. We've been very fortunate with getting the best equipment out there, the very latest. And in fact, we're getting, in maybe a month or so, another piece of equipment that is really going to be a game changer for us because of the ease of use, but for you guys too. It's going to be the crawl system that you see, you know, above or below the screen when you get severe weather, and it's going to be more informative. It's going to be faster. It's going to be better looking. So everything there, they're really investing a lot into us, and they always have. So it's great to have a company like Scripps that really wants to put, their money where their mouth is and invest in that. So it's great. So hurricane season, of course, we're already in it. It's July. It runs through November, through all of November. And of course, this is just the climatological. This isn't like you turn a switch on June 1st and you turn it off on November. We've had storms in every single month form. So this is just when most of them form. And June and July are pretty much slow months. We've had a few already, I know, but they haven't really been a whole lot. Now, remember last year. Last year, 21 named storms. You could say busy, but was it? Maybe. For some, because 7 hurricanes, if you compare it to the year before, that's half of the hurricanes of the year before that we had last year. Unfortunately, we had 8 storms make landfall, not hurricanes, but named storms make landfall in the U.S. So that's what kind of makes it busy. Remember all the years? I mean, I think we went 10, 11 or so years with no landfalls in Florida at all, and now we're kind of racking it up again. 7 of those storms, though, only lasted 2 days or less. So that's why I say busy in names, yes, but it only lasted, some of them, probably weren't even found back in the day, in the 60s or 70s. All right, so this year, what are we talking about? Now, Colorado State, like I said, leading forecaster for this, and NOAA's kind of the same. They forecast the same, but they just came out with a new update, and it's on par with their old one. It's 20 named storms, 10 of those hurricanes, and 5 of them major hurricanes. Last year, we didn't have any major hurricanes. So 5 major hurricanes when the average is 4. So you can see that's above average for any year. Our averages did go up to 14 named storms, 7 and 3, but this will be an above average season. They noted, too, that they anticipate above average probability for major hurricanes making landfall along the continental U.S. and the Caribbean. So that kind of is a little eye-opener that you're like, what? That means we need to pay attention to this and be prepared. Now, the reasons behind this here, like I said, we always have reasons. I wish this thing was wireless. Can I take it off here? Well, there's just a little wire. I just feel like people can hear me better. Like every time I turn my head to look at the screen, you can't hear me. But anyways, the reasons behind these, of course, we track El Nino every year. And El Nino is not present. El Nino is what I broke it. And El Nino is what suppresses activity. So we don't have that. Oh, yay. Sorry. All right, good. Very good. I like to be active and walk around. I'm not somebody who sits still. So with no El Nino, that means nothing's out there. There's no roadblocks, nothing to suppress the activity. So that's check, one for a positive there of more activity. We have warmer than average waters. Well, at the beginning of the season, it was in the subtropics, which is where we are, and then now it's even in the deep tropics, in the main development region. So warmer water is more fuel. It's kind of like pouring gas all everywhere, and you got a bunch of it. So that's the fuel that hurricanes use. And it's also, well, the Gulf of Mexico and near the Bahamas is just crazy warm right now. So that's a lot of fuel there close to home. And also a very robust West African monsoon so far. That's where all the tropical waves come from. When we watch them come off Africa, sometimes there's some years where they're very anemic. There's only a few of them. It's not real active. This year, well, we already know because it started that it's pretty active. So there'll be a lot of waves coming off. Those are the little seeds that are planted when a hurricane forms there as they go across the Atlantic. So those are the things that we're looking at this year. Now, there are things that we look at on a regular basis, too, which I'll go over in a minute. First, these are the names here. Alex, Bonnie, Colin, we already got. So we check mark those off. And, if we go through this entire list, because there's 21 names on it, well, we go to the spillover list. Now, this supplemental list has changed. Now they decided that the Greek alphabet, since we used it for a couple of years, they're like, oof, that's not a good idea. We had people, alpha, gamma, beta, they don't know what's going on. So they decided to make a list. The World Meteorological Organization makes all of this, and they decide on how all of this goes. And they decided we're just going to make a supplemental list, and we'll crank through the supplemental list every single year. This does not change every year. The other list changes every year. There's 6 lists every 6 years. So this will not change. However, if one of these happen to be a particularly strong and destructive storm, it will get retired just like the original list, and it will get replaced by another name. So that's how they're going to do that. And that's a change over the past couple of years. So here's the Atlantic water temperatures, the anomalies here. So this just means if it's hotter than normal or cooler than normal. And you can see all through them. This is the main development region, and it's all warm, and it's into the Gulf of Mexico too. So again, that's one of the reasons. Now, El Nino is warmer than normal waters, and La Nina is cooler than normal waters in the Pacific, so it's kind of easy to see what we're in right now. This signature, whoop, whoop, way cooler than normal. So we are still solid in a La Nina, which has been going on for a little bit now. So we're solid with that. Now, warmer waters in El Nino, that would be warmer waters off of South and Central America there. That would mean, well, a lot of shear. It doesn't do much for the summer months. In the winter, though, it makes it cooler and wetter. We get more cold fronts, but maybe not stronger cold fronts, and it's just a rainier winter months. Minimal impact on the summer, except for the fact that the tropical aspect of it decreases activity. So El Nino would decrease activity by shear. Just the upper level shear just rips everything apart. And if a storm is trying to grow from the bottom, right? It's trying to grow. You got rising air. It's trying to grow. It's trying to spin. If you have something, just like you, if you're standing up here and somebody's trying to push you over, every time you try to stand up, somebody's pushing you over, pushing you over. That's what that shear is doing. That shear is pushing the storm over, and it's not allowing it to really get going. So that's why El Ninos are really killers for hurricane seasons. Doesn't mean none for them, it just means less. And this is a graph on what the predictions are. I'll just fly through this. This means, so the blue line is La Nina, and because it's higher than the rest of them, probably not going anywhere for a little bit. And if anything, this is neutral. So it's not going to be an El Nino. It's not going to be neutral. So another big thing here is the AMO, the Atlantic Multi-Decadal Oscillation. I know that sounds very scientific, but what it basically is we have big swings in hurricane activity, and they last several years. Multi-decadal, that means decades. So this is a decade-long thing, and we're in one of the positive parts of that. It started in 1995 is when we started the swing of higher amounts of hurricanes, and you can see it here. So remember, 95, Andrew was about 93, so we were kind of on the upward swing, but remember what a slow year Andrew was. We've kind of been on an upward swing. Been pretty down in the 70s, not a whole lot, but remember all the historic ones, 50s, 40s, that was the higher part. 1900s, all of those storms that hit, that was the lower one there, 1901 to 1930. Just a couple of big storms. 1800s, you always hear about the storms, way back. That was the higher thing. So that's one of the things that we look in. We're in the more active time of that. That's why one of the reasons why we're seeing more hurricanes every single year. All right, another thing that we look for is that Saharan dust. Remember we saw it at the beginning of the season? It's usually more prevalent in, say, June and July. But it can get all the way over here, all the way through the season. And if not all the way over here, it gets into the deep tropics too. And it's just like dry dust. It's like it'll soak up the moisture like a sponge. So when those tropical waves come out and they're trying to gather energy, they're trying to soak up some of that ocean fuel, and then you have a sponge every time kind of sucking all the moisture out of it, it inhibits activity. So we track these, and you can track them as they come off the coast. Those big monsoon waves, they got wind with them, they kick up all that dust. They kick up all that Saharan dust way up into the atmosphere, and it ends up making it all the way across. This is a satellite picture. The new GOES is super detailed, but you can see it coming off the coast of Africa, and the trades transported all the way across. You can see here in the Caribbean. This is what it looks like in the sky. You remember we had this. I'm not a fan of this. I don't like looking up and seeing white sky, but it's when it's just white out and that haze off in the distance. I think this is like Puerto Rico or something when it came over the islands there. So this is a clear day, and then this is when there's a bunch of haze. And again, we had that, I think it was mid-June, maybe early June we had that. So go on to formation. We're in July now, so we're starting to look a little bit farther. June, mainly close to home. That's about it. Now we're looking a little bit farther out towards the islands. Of course, August, September, pretty much anywhere's open game for these things to form and move. October, we start squeezing it down a little bit. We cut off this region because wind's just not favorable anymore in August. We're starting to transition in the fall. And then November, it's just something coming out of the Caribbean from time to time. Our peak is September 10th. That's when the most activity historically has occurred, when there's the best chance to see a hurricane or a tropical storm out in the Atlantic. And we want to caution, though, the Weather Service did a study on this, and they said, well, yeah, but more than 60% of landfalling storms in South Florida occur after that September 10th peak. So just because we get to the peak doesn't mean you let your guard down. The hurricane steering currents here, where are they going? How does it work? Well, we have three different types here. We have a weak, a kind of a middle, and then a strong Bermuda high. A weak one, the storms are going to pretty much curve out to sea well before they get to us. So when it's real weak, you always see them just going out into the Atlantic and staying out there. Now, when it's a little bit stronger, they get a little bit closer. They get steered towards the East Coast, and it just kind of depends. It's like almost like ocean waves. You remember the atmosphere is fluid, so it's going to fluctuate. So that Bermuda high is going to fluctuate back and forth, and it's going to happen while the storm is out there. So that's why predicting it can be a little bit tricky too. And then, of course, if it's super strong, that's when everything goes into the Caribbean and into the Gulf of Mexico. Because that thing, think of this as like a mountain, right? And the hurricane is like a bowling ball, and it's rolling down like a little gutter, and it can't go up over the mountain, right? The bowling ball is just going, steering, just like it's following a river or a little trough. The Saffir-Simpson scale, everybody kind of knows this, category 1, 2, but keep in mind, like, I know, especially people that have been here a while, you're like, oh, category 1, we don't have to do anything. But, I mean, 75 mile per hour winds is a lot, you know? Like, that can cause some damage. A category 1 will produce some power outages. It'll, you know, knock around stuff. If you don't take in your stuff outside, it's going to get blown all around. So a category 2, up to 110 miles per hour, I mean, if you're in the eye wall, I mean, that's some serious damage too. And then, of course, a 3 and a 4 and a 5, which we don't want to ever have, but we were super close, weren't we? Dorian. Oh, my goodness. That was crazy. That, when we were at the station, that thing, the models had that thing coming right into, like, Palm Beach County and the Treasure Coast. I mean, just directly into us again, and that was a monster. And then I remember we were all like, I can't even believe this is going to happen. The next day, just like that, the models changed. They got the new information. The hurricane hunters, that's what the hurricane hunters are out there, to put the data in the models, all the data. So it's what's happening right now. They're getting all that data. They load it into the models. It spits out a solution, and then we can see how it's trending towards with the real data, the more detailed data out there, and how it goes. And we got lucky with that one, but unfortunately, Grand Bahama did not, and they had to go through that for hours because it stalled there. Some notable storms, of course, Hurricane Irma there. There was Dorian, 185 mile per hour winds just stalled right over Abaco and Grand Bahama, and you can see just the destruction that it caused there. And sure, you could say, you know, our stuff is maybe built a little bit, you know, better than wooden houses, but with winds like that, I mean, there's still going to be like massive destruction and storm surge. Hurricane Harvey, remember that one? That was the rainmaker, right? That's a new kind of benchmark for rain, 60+ inches of rain. And that, of course, flooded all of northeastern Texas. Andrew, right? This was our benchmark before we had Francis and Gene, everything on the Treasure Coast, and everything started ramping up. Andrew was the benchmark there, and it hit south of Miami, 165 mile per hour winds, Cat 5. It was a very tiny storm, relatively. It was very compact and small, but it was a monster moving on in to South Florida. And you can see back then, there weren't as nice as building codes of what we have now, and we've built up South Florida a lot now with better, stronger hurricane codes, and so not quite tested yet for something like that, and we hope never to. Labor Day storm, 1935, that was a huge one there. It knocked the train off, and then this one too was kind of the benchmark before, like Andrew, Camille, that wiped out that apartment building in Pass Christian, and I think only a couple of people survived there that were having a hurricane party or something like that. But just shows the destruction, especially along the Gulf Coast, when it comes to storm surge. For us here, see, we're lucky. The Atlantic, it gets really deep fast. Even on the Treasure Coast, a little bit less on the Treasure Coast, but it gets deep fast, so you can't pile up that water like in the Gulf where it's just shallow for so long, the shelf, and then it drops on off. So the hurricane can pick up all that water, push all that water up. And where's the water going to go? It's too shallow to go down, so it goes inland, and that's what causes a lot of the destruction. But you don't need a big hurricane to cause damage. This is Tropical Storm Faye in Wellington, and rain, Tropical Storm Isaac. Remember that one? We got like 22 inches of rain in parts of the area there, and a couple tornadoes. You know, of course, hurricanes spawn tornadoes in the outer bands. So if we don't have a direct impact, that doesn't mean we see no impact, because always the outer bands have some kind of tornado risk. So the worst part of the storm, when you hear us talk about this, the right part of the storm, but what does that really mean? This right quadrant, it's to the storm direction. So let me turn it to show you this is the way storms move, right? So they're always moving, for the most part, from the east to the west. So it would be the north side of that storm. So if you're in that area there, that's what's going to have the most damage and the most destructive part of the hurricane. It will be the right side of the storm, because the storm is rotating counterclockwise, and you just get more push right there. So that's not a spot you want to be in. A watch and a warning. So a watch, right, in general, right, not just hurricane, but whenever you hear a watch, tornado watch, whatever it is, a watch just means the conditions are there. It's possible to happen. It might not, but it's possible. So think of it as maybe like a broader, especially for hurricanes, a broader warning area. Then when you get to a hurricane warning, now we're narrowing it down. So that's 48 hours, 36 hours for a warning. We're narrowing down the time, but we're also narrowing down the area, because we don't want to put people in a hurricane warning if they're not going to see hurricane winds and worry you needlessly. So we've been able to narrow that down over the years now with better technology, better forecasting, better modeling, so we can narrow this down a whole lot more. So when you hear the warning, that means, I mean, you got to do everything. In fact, you probably should be complete by then, but if you can get your house together and put the shutters up and do all that, a hurricane warning, if you haven't done that, you need to do it for sure. Probably a watch if you need more time. If you need more time, then do it when a watch comes out. You know, and I just want to mention this too, because we get this from everywhere. Like all of the hurricanes, tornadoes, all of that, they're local, right? So you want to listen to the local people, your local emergency management, the local weather people, the local National Weather Service office. I know we have many times I was watching CNN and they said it was total destruction for everybody, you're all going to die. Well, that's what the national news does. We are separate from the national news. We are not CNN. We are not Fox News. We are not MSNBC. Even if we share a similar moniker, we're not. We're local. We're with you. I'm here with you guys right now. I live here. We all live here. And we all are part of this community. They're somewhere else, and they're just doing whatever that we have to unravel later. But we just had this over the years, right? So we had to put this in there. You always got to have a family plan. Discuss this, right? Do it ahead of time. That way you don't have to think about it, and more time, more worry. Really, that's what you're doing, is the worry, right? You want to say, okay, we have a hurricane watch. I know exactly what I'm doing. Sure, I'm a little worried. You should be, but like, at least I'm not worried about what to do. What do I do now? What do I do this? Go over this already, have your plan, because it's all personal to us, right? You or you or you, we're all going to have different plans because we all have different needs. So you want to look at what you need to do and make that plan and pin it down. And don't think that's not going to change. You're always going to learn something from the last hurricane. We're always going to learn, okay, I should have did this, I should have did that. So then write that down after a hurricane and say, this is what I need to do. I need to add this to my plan. Water, you need a bunch of it, of course, for 3 to 7 days. Food, you need food and a way to cook it, like a grill or something, so keep that in mind, or just, and be sure to have like a non-electrical can opener if you do canned food, obviously. Pillows, clothing, hygiene items, cell phones, right? The good thing with cell phones, it's good to have, I have a little solar charger, but you have your car too, so there's that. But eventually, if this keeps going on and on, you're going to run out of gas, and then you won't be able to do that. And then, if you do have generators and stuff, just keep in mind the generator safety. You can't put it in the garage, even with the garage door up. That's not what you're supposed to do. In fact, it's not even supposed to be over an overhang, which I know makes things really, really difficult, but that's what the safety is for that. Carbon monoxide is no joke, so it can get in your house through anywhere. So the little soffits underneath your roof, if you have it underneath, it can go right in there. So you got to stay safe with the generators too. Maybe buy a lock if you're worried about somebody running away with it, and lock it to a tree or something like that. I always thought put an umbrella over it if you're worried about like it raining, like a long, like your pool umbrella is really long, and then you can put it in the ground next to it or something like that. Here's our Weather Pilot 5. It's outside. Hey, check it out. It's really cool. As we do the weather from this as a TV in the back, and thanks to James Griffel over there, our promotions guy, bringing it today. Look at the old school weather radio. This is one. I have this one actually, and it's a crank. So you need batteries, but you don't need batteries because you can crank it. Anybody still have this one? We were giving these away at one point. They're awesome though. Like you can sit and crank it. So of course nowadays this is new school. That was old school. New school. Download our apps. We have everything on here from the radar to news, everything. The best thing, especially nowadays, streaming. We have everything streaming on here. There's so many channels that we can stream on our app and on our phone. If we're ever doing 24/7 and we're going all the way through, it's going to be on here. We're going to stream it all the time, and we stream the local news all the time anyways. So this is a really nice resource just to have it. Get on there. If you don't like all the pop-ups coming in, you can shut those off, but as long as you have this on here for you to say, hey, I want to watch what they're doing right now, and you can go through and watch it. So there you go. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate it.